The live coverage of day one of the debate on the 2017-2018 Appropriation Bill. The debate so far, we've seen the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Philip J. Pierre. Up next is the Member of Parliament for Ansari Canaries, who's also the Minister for Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Honorable Dominic Fedi. The Speaker has now taken a position, and I take you over to the House.
Honourable members, when the House last rose, the question before it was that the appropriation, the 2017-2018 bill be read a second time. I do, bear with me, Honourable Member, I do have an announcement, but I would have loved for the members of the opposition to be present. So if you don't mind, I'm putting you on warning, Honourable Member, that I may interject during your presentation. Honourable Member for Ancillary Canaries and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for tourism.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to, before I begin, I want to thank the Almighty God for affording me the opportunity to add my voice to this appropriation bill. And I want to as well, Madam Speaker, thank the people, the good people of Ancillary and Canaries for choosing to have their faith in me, place their faith in me, to represent them in this honorable House. Madam Speaker, it is an honor that I take with much seriousness and humility, and it is one of the greatest honors in my life to serve. Madam Speaker, I would like to begin, unfortunately, I would like to ask that you give me some time to deal with some of the misconceptions that we've heard in the last 2 hours, 2.5 hours, in a presentation that was incoherent, that was wild, erratic, and I'm expressing my opinion, Madam Speaker, by the leader of the honorable opposition. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, I'm a bit disappointed that he's not here so I can stare him in the face as I deal with all of the issues that he has raised here tonight. And Madam Speaker, he began quite smartly by stating to the House that he will surmise a pestle analysis of the situation. And so he began, Madam Speaker, with the political situation of the country. And then he accused us of fear-mongering, he accused us of victimization, he accused us of a lack of transparency, and the list goes on. Madam Speaker, I will just take a few moments to address some of them. The first question I had for the Leader of the Opposition, who is not here, is who, Madam Speaker, which government, which political party would have instigated the most lawsuits against the media as we deal with the issue of fear? Which political organization, which government coined the phrase media terrorists in their attempt, Madam Speaker, to intimidate the press, to muzzle them, and to scare them from speaking the truth about the various issues that confronted the country, Madam Speaker? You see, all of these issues are the reason why the people of this good country decided that they would place their faith in the United Workers' Party government. Madam Speaker, as we deal with the issue of victimization, which we spoke of on several occasions here tonight, Madam Speaker, please allow me to, with your permission, to make a document of the House, a High Court judgment, Madam Speaker, dated the 15th of June 2016. And really, it It has to do with a judgment by the High Court in favor of 15 displaced workers from the Castries Constituency Council, dismissed by the previous administration, Madam Speaker, because they were perceived to be supporters of the United Workers' Party, and I am willing to make this document a document of the House, Madam Speaker.
It's not willing. If you are making it a document of the House, I'm sure, as alluded to earlier, you know the procedure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This document is now available to the House, but here we have it clear. A judgment where the government is now paying $300,000 in excess of that, Madam Speaker, to these workers because of wrongful dismissal from the Castries Constituency Council. Very clear evidence of victimization from the previous administration.
That's right.
The honorable members spent a lot of time speaking about transparency, and it was a phrase or half of a phrase that the previous administration coined when they ran a successful campaign in 1997. It was transparency and accountability was the buzzword. Madam Speaker, a government that say that they're transparent, or a government, Madam Speaker, that continues to be silent on the Grindberg matter cannot say that they are a transparent government. And they are not entitled, Madam Speaker, to criticize or lecture anyone about transparency unless they are willing to break their silence on the Grindberg matter, which made available, Madam Speaker, thousands of acres of the country's seabed to one called Mr. Jack Grindberg. And so, Madam Speaker, I wish the honorable member for Viewfort South was here, because he was the Prime Minister whose signature appeared on the document. Madam Speaker, the public, like the United Workers' Party while in opposition, found out about the IMO representative for St. Lucia in the British press. Madam Speaker, we found out about a name which all of us couldn't pronounce. I think it's Jafali, his name was. And Madam Speaker, they are still silent on this matter, but yet they would like to lecture us on transparency and accountability. Madam Speaker, hypocritical and duplicitous, I describe this as being. So, Madam Speaker, we see that the record is clear. And during the break, my colleague, who has promised to bring liberation to the people of Castries Southeast in the next general election, she has reminded me of a scripture, and please allow me, Madam Speaker, to go there, because the honorable member for Castries East did take some time to express his respect for things religious. So, Madam Speaker, the scripture goes like this, and it says that, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And Madam Speaker, I want to reference this scripture as it pertains to his many claims of victimization, for his many claims of fair mongering.
That's right, brother. I wish he was there. I wish he was there to hear that.
And so, Madam Speaker, he spoke of the reintroduction of things like the STEP program. Madam Speaker, the constituency which I have the honor to represent, many of our residents, many of our citizens, it is pitiful, Madam Speaker, that their salaries under the STEP program would be $500 every 3 months. It would be one STEP program for Easter, one STEP program for back to school in the month of August, and one STEP in the month of December. But there are 52 weeks in the year. And so the $5 economy that the member of Castries East would like to build, Madam Speaker, that $5 economy, there is no place for that in these times of tough fiscal situations, Madam Speaker. We cannot grow an economy with $5 politics.
That's right.
And so, Madam Speaker, the STEP program, Madam Speaker, while it is somewhat of an ease to some of our citizens, we must never ever boast, and we must never ever wish that upon our citizens. But we must try to empower them. We must try to liberate them from cutting the grass, as my colleague from Castries Southeast would like to say, cutting the grass at the side of the road and place it behind the grass. Is that what he said? But Madam Speaker, we want to elevate people's lives. And while we give them a boost Madam Speaker, or we give them somewhat of a reprieve from their unemployment situation, we must never, ever, Madam Speaker, rejoice and make programs like STEP something permanent in the lives of our people. And then, Madam Speaker, he had his own economic analysis when he tried to discredit what I believe to be a very good budget Prime Minister. And Madam Speaker, this entire country is inspired by the budget, by the Appropriation Bill. The calls that we have received continue to pour in. But Madam Speaker, for cheap political points, the Leader of the Opposition and the Honourable Member for Castries East, Madam Speaker, spoke about deficits and spoke about how the primary and overall deficits had expanded and chided our government. But Madam Speaker, he neglected to say what the extreme austerity of the last 4 years did to the economy. He neglected, Madam Speaker, to broaden the economic debate, and which was the high taxation, which was led largely by the value-added tax, closed many businesses, caused many people to be unemployed, and Madam Speaker, strangled this economy, in that the figures are clear in the Prime Minister's budget statement. It was clear, Madam Speaker, the ECCB currency union was growing at a rate of 2% average, while St. Lucia in the last 5 years could only muster 0.3%, Madam Speaker, underperformance. How can that be a successful fiscal policy? It cannot, Madam Speaker. And so I'm so sorry that my friend is not here, because again, his economic analysis is wrong. His economic analysis is very flawed and can only land this country and its people into more suffering. Madam Speaker, I also want to say that in the estimates that we have presented in this appropriation bill, we have seen that the revenues are going to be increased, Madam Speaker, a positive, despite the many tax cuts proposed by our Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. We see that, Madam Speaker, we will increase the revenue, is projected to increase by $51 million from $1,107,698,663 to $1,158,056,973. It's there in the estimates, Madam Speaker, this big book which the Ministry of Finance took its time to put together. But the member for Castries East, he has selective reading, Madam Speaker, and perhaps the glasses came from the, Blind Welfare Association. Madam Speaker, the airport charge, Madam Speaker, he also chided the government, Madam Speaker, over the airport charge which we have instituted. But again, Madam Speaker, neglected to tell the country that on the 29th of June, Madam Speaker, 2015, a document which was already made a document of the House. There's a cabinet conclusion number 384 of 2015, an increase in the airport service charge to facilitate the Urinora International Airport Public-Private Partnership transaction. Madam Speaker, it says clearly, Cabinet considered a memorandum dated 25th of June 2015 and noted the intention of the Minister for Infrastructure, Port Services and Transport, and in this case, it is referring to the Honourable Member for Castries East, to accept the recommendation of the Council of St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority to increase the airport service charge to facilitate the Urinora International Airport Public-Private Partnership transaction as follows. It goes on to say, Madam Speaker, that an increase in the airport service charge in the amount of $30 per passenger. The new airport service charge, as intended by the previous administration, was supposed to be in the region, not exactly and specifically, $55, Madam Speaker. Clearly, there's an intent on the part of the previous administration to increase the airport tax. But what is interesting about this is that when it was instituted by our government, Madam Speaker, you'll remember clearly in the year 2010, when we had the foresight to see that there was a magnificent opportunity to finance the airport. And they went on such a limb, Madam Speaker, in opposition. They called the decision immoral. They said, how could you charge a fee when the airport construction had not begun? Madam Speaker, they chided us and said that the decision lacked integrity. And Madam Speaker, they came into government and removed the airport development tax. But then here they are doing the very same thing a few days later. We're not sure, Madam Speaker, what the opposition is about. They are erratic, they are inconsistent, they are duplicitous, Madam Speaker. And you know what? You know, there's a popular calypsonian which spoke about a certain politician having two split personalities. And you know, one day he comes with an opinion and he comes with a different name with another opinion. And Madam Speaker, this is the kind of approach and this is the kind of philosophy that this opposition has, Madam Speaker. They're in opposition now, and so they believe that it is their right and it is their job and their role and responsibility to just create a whole ton of havoc in this country by spreading misinformation. The very same policy, Madam Speaker, that they criticize now, they were going to ensure that it was done. Look at it, it's here in a cabinet conclusion. I want them to deny it, but they're not here, Madam Speaker, they're running. I thought they said I was short. I don't know, they're afraid of short people. Anyways, Madam Speaker, we see as well that my friend from Castries East, the honorable member for Castries East, conveniently took a strong religious position and accused the United Workers' Party of attacking the church. Madam Speaker, let it be said on record that no member of this cabinet, no member of the lower or upper house that is a member of the United Workers' Party administration, Madam Speaker, has criticized the church or attacked the church openly, Madam Speaker. And so here he is now taking this religious position. But I remember, Madam Speaker, very well, because though I'm young and short and small, I've been following politics for a while. And I remember in this honorable house, there was a bill being debated, the abortion bill, and the church spoke out vehemently against it. And there was a certain government, Madam Speaker, whose attacks on the church was very vile, whose attacks on the church, Madam Speaker, was aggressive and vicious, Madam Speaker. And now they have the audacity to fool the people of St. Lucia, Madam Speaker, to indicate to them that the church is under attack. Madam Speaker, since when these gentlemen are people who safeguard the rights and freedoms of religion? Madam Speaker, it is alleged that they didn't used to pray in the cabinet, Madam Speaker. It was forbidden,
That's right.
Madam
That's right.
Speaker. Things religious,
That's right.
Madam Speaker. But I am proud to say that under this Alan Shastney administration, every single Monday we pray and we ask God for wisdom. And so, Madam Speaker, it's not everyone that says to you, Lord, Lord. I'm sure you know that very well, Madam Speaker. Not all of them that say, Lord, Lord. But, Madam Speaker, he also took the time to look at the social environment, he called it, as part of his pestle analysis. And he zeroed in on the National Trust and said that we were attacking the National Trust. But, Madam Speaker, please allow me to be very honest and frank with you and with the people of St. Lucia looking at this debate. I have a problem with the debate that has so far developed as it pertains to various issues that our government have decided that we would just consider. Madam Speaker, we as a cabinet have not made a decision on the Dolphin Park issue. That's number one. Number two, Madam Speaker, I personally, I don't know for the rest of my cabinet colleagues, but I have a strong objection, Madam Speaker, for an organization whose responsibility it is to safeguard the environmental and heritage assets of this country, to allow itself to be contaminated by high-level political officials of the St. Lucia Labour Party. Yep. And so, Madam Speaker, when Jimmy Fletcher is a voice for the National Trust, the message is tainted. When Calix George Jr. is a voice and a messenger for the National Trust, the message is tainted. And when Julian Hunt appears to be upfront and center at the dialogue of the National Trust, then, Madam Speaker, the message will be tainted. I am not sure if I am fighting against the St. Lucia Labour Party or whether I'm debating against a bona fide organization. And so I am asking the members of the trust to do us all a favor. Clean up your house. Clean up your system. And let us have a dialogue. Let us have a responsible discussion as it pertains to the various issues that are before us. And I think that the Honorable Member for Castries East, he has a responsibility to ensure that the debate is approached with integrity, Madam Speaker, that it is approached with transparency, Madam Speaker, and it is with justness and fairness. And so, Madam Speaker, they're not here because they're afraid of what we have to tell them. And I'm just getting a bit warm. But Madam Speaker, the other issue that I have with this whole debate is that there has been no environmental impact assessment done. But yet we're hearing all kinds of speculation. We're hearing all kinds of things that are going to happen to lizards and snakes and all kinds of stuff. Madam Speaker, in my own constituency in Ancillary, in the St. Lawrence River, one of the rivers that flows to the coastline of Ancillary, there is a mangrove that's at the mouth of the river. And Madam Speaker, every time there is some rain, the mangrove clogs the flow of the river. And the people of the community have been told by the trust that despite their property and their lives are at risk, that they shouldn't remove this mangrove, that they should stay and they should endure the floods. But Madam Speaker, I was away the last time, and you know, welcome my friend. I was away the last time, and Madam Speaker, we had the rains of Hurricane Matthew. And the people took matters into their own hands, and they responsibly created a path for the waters to flow. Madam Speaker, they did the sensible thing without destroying the mangrove. And Madam Speaker, sometimes I wonder whether we back ourselves into extreme preservationist positions, Madam Speaker, at the detriment of our own advancement, of our own lives, and our own development. And Madam Speaker, I am open to all possibilities, as the government of St. Lucia is. And we are open to dialogue as it pertains to the various issues. We have not made a decision. And so, Madam Speaker, our budget was also chastised for stating that we have a number of policy measures in the pipeline by the Honorable Leader of the Opposition. But Madam Speaker, I want to ask the Leader of the Opposition one thing. Where is the diabetes lab that was promised to the people of St. Lucia? An incomplete project.
Where is it?
Where is the St. Jude project, Madam Speaker, the St. Jude Hospital completion? Still incomplete.
Where is it?
And this one is for the member for Viewfort North. Through you, Madam Speaker. Where is the Youth in Agriculture project? Where is it? Where is it? Madam Speaker, in my own constituency, the Youth in Agricultural project, you know what the success has been? The success has been a contract issued to supposedly, and this is my opinion because you express your opinion, a political crony to fence the property. And Madam Speaker, the grass is taller than the Amazon jungle. That is the success of the Youth in Agriculture project in the constituency of Ansoray Canaries. And I invite you to Roseau tomorrow, Madam Speaker, if you think I'm lying. You can see for yourself, the sign is there. But the sign is obscured by all of the bushes that has grown, Madam Speaker. And there is a big announcement. We are liberating the youth with our Youth in Agriculture project. Now, I simply say this, Madam Speaker, to make the point that from time to time, governments in our good intentions will want to do a lot for the people. But oftentimes, as did when Honorable Stephenson King was Prime Minister, there are things like natural disasters, hurricanes that take place, that may then divert the government's attention to something else, or economic challenges that may then cause governments to reprioritize and to do things differently as it pertains to the menu of policy issues that it has to deal with. Madam Speaker, I want to spend a moment on the excise tax because the honorable member of the opposition has erroneously stated that we're increasing the price of gas by 16%. Madam Speaker, there could be nothing further from the truth. There could be nothing further from the truth. And I want to go on record as saying that that's a false statement. And the leader of the opposition knows that that's a false statement. That's trickery. And for a man who's a tax consultant or an accountant should know better, Madam Speaker. His calculator should work a lot better than it has tonight. His numbers have been all over the place, Madam Speaker. To suggest that we are raising the price of gas by 16%, it's by 60%, it's erroneous. It's erroneous. It is mischievous. It is petty and disingenuous. And you cannot say that outside because you know it is libelous. That is an abuse of parliamentary immunity. That's what that is.
Tell him. Make him understand.
And so, Madam Speaker, the issues before us are very serious for us to be playing $5 politics. Madam Speaker, it is time to change. It is time to do things differently, Madam Speaker. It is time for us to approach government and governance with integrity, Madam Speaker. And so, which is why I'm proud of my cabinet for coming out up front and tell the people of St. Lucia that we are on a mission to improve the roads, and to do so we need money. Madam Speaker, here are the facts. In the year 2010 to 2011, $15 million were spent on road rehabilitation. In the year 2015 to 2016, it was reduced to $4 million. Sorry, Madam Speaker, that was the previous year. Madam Speaker, in the year 2016 to 2017, we were spending a measly $2 million on road repairs. And so, Madam Speaker, this trend of insufficient and inadequate funding for the rehabilitation and maintenance of our roads, Madam Speaker, has caused a lot of them to be immotivable, Madam Speaker. I have bus drivers in my constituency who are up in arms. They bought new buses, Madam Speaker, and they have to drive through a jungle, right? A road that was done under your watch while you were Minister of Infrastructure. It was rushed in order to prop up your candidate. You still didn't win, right? And within 3 months, the road is like the Amazon River. I mean, come on. And so, Madam Speaker, we have to rescue this situation. We have to rescue the crisis situation so that we can rehabilitate and restore a lot of the roads. The Duga Road in Micoud South, the road in Foreste, Madam Speaker, Castries Southeast, they're in a mess. Madam Speaker, one of the things that my vote is not certain for the member of Grosley because my roads are in a mess, but now he has money to fix it. Because we have done we have done the honorable thing. We have told the people straight up. We didn't hide taxes. We didn't pretend like we weren't making money from the pass-through mechanism. We didn't pretend, right? We said clearly, this is the price of gas. This is what we would like to do. We would like to put on an additional $1.50 on a gallon of gas so that we can fix the roads. We have made that clear. Nothing to hide. It is in the Prime Minister's budget policy statement. There is nothing non-transparent about it. It is clear as day. This is not cheap $5 politics. This is governance with integrity and transparency. So, Madam Speaker, we see, Madam Speaker, that we were also chided about the Jazz Festival. And I don't know why the leader of the opposition would go there. He likes to talk about tourism with me. I don't know why you like to do that. But Madam Speaker, the facts is that the Jazz Festival, Madam Speaker, and he wondered why people, he sort of alleged and assumed that the turnout would be low for jazz. But if there's a low turnout for jazz this year, Madam Speaker, the reason being is that 11,000 people will not get complimentary tickets again.
11,000.
Jazz was used as a political tool. That's my opinion. Okay? And so, Madam Speaker, last year,
I wish to make a statement. I was hoping, I did tell you, Honorable Member and Minister, that I would interject at some point. I was hoping that a lot more members on the opposition would have been in the House at this time. I wish to state that earlier on, I made a ruling on the issue of what, a ruling on the standing order objection made by the Honorable Member for Grosley on the Standing Order 35-5, where he asserted that the member for Castries East and leader of the opposition was imputing improper motives to other members of the House by the use of the constant use of the phrase or words victimization, and vindictiveness. I ruled that the use later on, when the honorable member attributed or added in his opinion, that if he said it was in his opinion, that justified the comment. I wish to state now that I erred in that judgment and ruling. To err is human. I have given lots of thought to it and wish to state that the mere addition of, in my opinion, an honorable member, the mere ascertaining or using the use of the words in my opinion, I wish to make that clear, cannot of itself justify or quell the fact that such words can impute improper motives. I wish to make myself clear, and I wish to state again that I erred and I was wrong in my ruling on that topic under the standing order, that qualifying what can otherwise or can be imputing improper motives to a member may not and cannot be qualified by just the mere use of or adding to that, in my opinion, because one can opine many, many things, and to just qualify it by saying it is your opinion, that does not negate or take away from the fact that it can be imputing improper motives. Okay? So, I am human, and I wish to make that point. 5 minutes is added to your clock, sir. You may continue.
Well, Madam Speaker, thank you very much for your correction and your generosity. Madam Speaker, I wish to state, though, categorically that it is a statement of fact that 11,000 tickets were complimentary last year. I cannot opine about the motives. I will keep my... Speaker, I'm guided by you. Madam Speaker, the truth about the Jazz Festival is this. Madam Speaker, the Jazz Festival was conceptualized to promote St. Lucia as a tourism destination. The festival, Madam Speaker, spent for most of its history about $6 million. Madam Speaker, there have been years, Madam Speaker, that the festival's budget had increased so exponentially that it became untenable for St. Lucia to justify the cost of the festival and for St. Lucia to ask itself whether it was getting the fullest returns and whether it could have invested those money in other places and got better returns. Madam Speaker, last year, the facts will show that we spent from a budget allocated to the St. Lucia Tourist Board of $34 million. We spent a whopping $14 million on the Jazz Festival. That, Madam Speaker, coupled with $9 million in administration cost, Madam Speaker, and $3 million for airline support fees, left the organization with a mere $8 million EC to do core marketing. But not only that, the other issues that surrounded the festival is that when the Tourist Board approached media organizations internationally to come and to provide coverage for the festival, there was little interest, Madam Speaker. We had lost the contract with BET for many years. It wasn't on television anymore. And so, Madam Speaker, we had to ask ourselves the question whether the Jazz Festival could act as the main marketing event for St. Lucia. It's just simple. And so this whole thing about, well, you know, they mash up jazz and the people from Marcia not getting any more jazz. Madam Speaker, it wasn't about bringing jazz to Marcia ever. It was always about marketing St. Lucia. That's what it was about. And while the Honorable Opposition Leader was Minister for Tourism, I was a journalist. And I asked him those questions, and he said the festival was never intended to make money. It was there to market, to put it in his own words, the destination of St. Lucia. So today I want to remind him of those same words, Madam Speaker. The tapes don't lie. Don't you dare attest me, I'll bring them. I want to remind him, Madam Speaker, of that point, that the festival was always the island's main marketing tool. And whether now, when we look at the returns, the visibility that we are receiving from the international press, whether St. Lucia was gaining sufficient exposure for $14 million. All of the other spin-offs, bringing jazz to the people and all of that stuff, all of that were fringe benefits that came with the festival. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm very proud of Alan Shastney, our Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Shastney, because I remember clearly, Madam Speaker, that he had a strong involvement in inventing the festival, Madam Speaker, and was very instrumental in bringing the festival to St. Lucia. And now, he is able to say that a project which I started is no longer viable in today's generation. And change we must. That's the fundamental point. That's the fundamental point. Not about clinging to whether the vendors in Marshall will make money from the festival and we don't have opening of jazz on Marshall Field. That is nonsense, honorable members. Sorry.
Honorable member, use of language, please. I wish you to apologize for it.
My sincerest apologies, Madam Speaker.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, on the point of elucidation, I never said in my contribution today, I never mentioned the opening of jazz. I never.
And so, Madam Speaker, the Jazz Festival is the main tourism marketing event. Full stop. Full stop. Main tourism marketing event. And so, Madam Speaker, sorry, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, it brings me to the favorite topic of the day. The DSH project. I heard it famously coined last night, Delivering Southern Hope. And Madam Speaker, sometimes when I hear the debate about DSH, I wonder whether the opposition is afraid of losing their stronghold on the South, or whether they're truly concerned about this deal. Because, Madam Speaker, as you will see later, and as the country knows, Madam Speaker, as they have said publicly, they have been talking to this investor, and they were very, very interested in inducing this particular investor to St. Lucia. But I want to deal with a couple of points, Madam Speaker, as it pertains to the DSH project. Our government continuously, we're chided for lands and the amount of land we're making available to one individual and one company. But Madam Speaker, please allow me to reference a letter which was already made a document of the House, and it is a letter from the Office of the Prime Minister dated February 9th, 2016, and it was from the then Prime Minister, Honorable Kenny D. Anthony, signed and copied to Attorney Mr. Peter I. Foster QC, Attorney at Law. Madam Speaker, it is addressed to one Mr. Robert Ainsworth of Equator Lands Limited. And Madam Speaker, this letter clearly states, Madam Speaker, that the government, the then government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, was willing to make available 1,000 acres of land. 1,000, I want to read it. Yes, I want to read it, Madam Speaker. And so here it says in the third paragraph, so this is the first, second, third, the third paragraph, you would also acquire by lease or purchase lands primarily in the south of the island, measuring approximately 1,000 acres. And what's different to DSH? That's what we're saying in the same document that you got from Facebook. It says that you can purchase lands. You can purchase lands, the developer can purchase lands by the acreage from 60 to 90,000 US dollars. That is what you call good governance, my friend. That is what you call sense, right? $60,000 to $90,000. Your same document that you picked up from Facebook. That's it. It's there. But you don't want to quote that. You don't want to quote that because you have your motives. And your motive is that you want to create fear and panic in our country, and you want to mislead people about the DSH deal. And that is disingenuous. It is there. The same document. It's there. If the developer wants to buy the land, Madam Speaker, it's 60 to 90,000 US dollars. Because we understand, Madam Speaker, the value of the lands, the airport lands, the lands surrounding the airport, the premium it is. The only disappointing thing, Madam Speaker, is that in the last 20 years, your government has been in power, and you have not seen it fit to come up with a workable plan to deliver the people of the south of the island from their economic stagnation. That's the only disappointing thing about this. That's the only disappointing thing. And so you want to keep them in poverty. You want to keep them dependent on STEP. You want to keep them dependent on NICE. It is time that we raise our people and empower them to get a real job. That's what this is about. Right? And so there it is, Madam Speaker. This deal that he got from Facebook is the same deal. Check it, 2.7. Clause 2.7 speaks to the selling of the lands. There it is. And by the way, it is not a contract. It is a framework agreement, Madam Speaker. No, I am using your Facebook document. I am not authenticating your document. I am using your Facebook document. But I have to quote your Facebook document, right? Coming to fool people, putting all kinds of lies on the internet. I will not stay silent and allow you to do that. I am very sorry. And so, Madam Speaker, I had the privilege, and I want to invite the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, because our government will be taking a team of press people. I had the privilege, Madam Speaker, of just returned from the World Tourism Forum, where I had the privilege of visiting a hotel owned by the Desert Star Holdings Company. And Madam Speaker, when I visited Switzerland, in the southeastern part of Switzerland, Madam Speaker, I saw an environmentally friendly development. It was within a ski resort, Madam Speaker. It was an area, Madam Speaker, that the Swiss revere as an environmental sanctuary, as we do to Soufrière and other areas in our country. And Madam Speaker, what struck me is that Mr. Theo Aking was able to meet the building regulations of the Swiss government. A government, Madam Speaker, that is noted and well respected the world over, Madam Speaker, for a green and a responsible development, Madam Speaker, to their economy. And so as I saw that project, it said to me one thing, that if Mr. King can meet the codes of Switzerland, then he stands a very good chance of meeting the building codes of St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, in the same document from Facebook, it also stated clearly, Madam Speaker, under the section that deals with environmental preservation, it stated that the master developer, in this case DSH, must adhere to local development standards. It must get approvals from DCA. It must, Madam Speaker, be inspected by the relevant government agencies. The document made all of that clear. All of that was made clear. But one of the things I love about Mr. Aking, is that he is willing to listen. They made noises about the mangrove. He said, okay, we wouldn't do that part. They made noises about Maria Island. He said, okay, we will readjust the drawings. Now I want to see what they will make noises of, Madam Speaker. There will be another issue They will raise another issue because they are just political obstructionists, not serious about the development of this country. So, Madam Speaker, here we go. A lot of lies, and to use his own words, flashing mirrors. Yes, Madam Speaker, flashing mirrors coming there to try and fool the people of St. Lucia with that presentation. Madam Speaker, I want to say to you that our position to grow this economy and to transform this society will liberate the people of Castries East. And so, Madam Speaker, the years of staying and being victims of this $5 economy, Madam Speaker, that their rep would like to propagate, Madam Speaker, we will deliver them from that. And so, Madam Speaker, we will wipe their eyes and we will wipe their tears. Because it's not the UWP government that causes them to cry. It is the representation of their rep which has failed to take them out of the social and economic malaise that they're in. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to say quite nicely that I am proud of this bill and that I stand very proud and tall. I am tall again. I stand very proud and tall in support of this bill. And Madam Speaker, this document put together by the Ministry of Finance staff and delivered by our Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, I'm in full support of it. And all of the various criticisms that we've heard, Madam Speaker, they're disingenuous. You see, this bill, Madam Speaker, comes at a very difficult time. And they would like the people of St. Lucia to believe that we have inherited a success from them. But, Madam Speaker, we've been handed a very, very, very difficult blow. And we've been handed a difficult hand. And so we must now ensure, Madam Speaker, that we deny the status quo. We reject those failed ideas of the past. And we renew this country to hope and prosperity. Madam Speaker, the Appropriation Bill endeavors to reduce the stubborn youth unemployment rate at over 40%. And a very, very difficult and unacceptable 21% of the general population. It seeks to free thousands of our nationals from limited access to health care, education, and housing. Madam Speaker, this appropriation bill expressly challenges the statistics and seeks to deliver transformation and change. Madam Speaker, the bill refuses to accept the old failed ideas of the past and that they are our only option, but instead, Madam Speaker, provoke our nation to reinvent itself at a critical time of its development. And so, Madam Speaker, tourism is called upon to deliver much in this bill. The growth strategy that the Prime Minister has chosen to replace the minuscule and unacceptable average of 0.3% growth rate in the last 5 years, Madam Speaker, places a tremendous demand on the tourism industry. And it comes at a time, Madam Speaker, when the industry is rebounding from its challenge. And I want to say that in 2016, reports from the St. Lucia Tourist Board suggest that there has been a 7.8% decline.
Honourable Member, you have 15 more minutes within which to complete your presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, a 7.8% decline in 2016, which was triggered by a 13% decline in cruise sector arrivals. Tourism contributed, Madam Speaker, despite that, $1.97 billion to the local economy. This represented a 4.8% in revenue during what was a challenging year.
Honorable Member for Castries Southeast.
Madam Speaker, I would like to invoke Section 3210 to allow the member for ancillary canneries an additional half hour to complete his presentation.
Honorable members, the question is that the honorable member for ancillary canneries we invoke Standing Order 3210 to allow the honorable member for ancillary canneries an additional 30 minutes within which to complete his presentation. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Please proceed, honorable member.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so we see, Madam Speaker, that the $1.97 billion, which the Tourist Board reports indicated, represented a 4.8% decline in revenue during what was a challenging year for the industry. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased that the industry in the first quarter has shown a strong sign of recovery and rebound. And the year 2017, according to St. Lucia Tourist Board statistics, Madam Speaker, suggests the following for our main markets. In the United States, we have seen that that market has increased by 1.7%. In Canada, we have seen a strong rebound after years of decline to 9.7% growth. In the United Kingdom, we have seen a decline of 6.4%, and we continue to have challenges in the United Kingdom market, Madam Speaker. And in the Caribbean, we see a 0.6% increase. In cruise arrivals have rebounded rather strongly, where we saw last year a 13% decline has now been improved significantly with a 27.8% increase in cruise arrivals, and we see yacht arrivals increasing by 1.1%. Madam Speaker, overall, the industry expanded by 19.65% from a total of 435,069 visitors from 603 visitors, and increased, Madam Speaker, by 71,466 visitors for the first 3 months of the year. Stayover visitors, Madam Speaker, increased by 3.6%, cruise by 28%. The UK market, Madam Speaker, continues to be our biggest challenge, and the UK market, however, is stabilized and buffered by recent rebound in the Canadian market. That's one. And also, Madam Speaker, we see that the cruise subsector comes back very strongly and does compensate for the decline that we continue to witness in the United Kingdom market. Madam Speaker, we believe that the reason being is that a number of St. Lucia's hotel stock, the room stock, Madam Speaker, continues to graduate from a 3.5-star hotel product to a 5-star product at a very higher price point, and so therefore, Madam Speaker, would do very well in higher yielding economies like the United States. Price sensitive markets like the UK, Madam Speaker, would continue to struggle because, Madam Speaker, of this transformation in our room stock, where a significant number of our rooms have transformed from an entry-level price point to a more higher yielding 5-star. That, Madam Speaker, requires us to position the destination a lot differently. And so this is why our government will undertake a major rebranding exercise of the destination. And Madam Speaker, to maximize innovation, what we have decided to do was to go beyond the narrow mold of travel PR companies and to contract a company that specializes in branding in the entertainment industry so that that company can lend some expertise, some new ideas, and some out-of-the-box thinking as it pertains to uniquely positioning St. Lucia as a choice destination for visitors to come to our shores. And so, Madam Speaker, work has advanced quite nicely on that, Madam Speaker. The other thing that we've done, and contrary to what you've heard here today, is that we have decided to streamline the marketing of the St. Lucia Tourist Board. And so we've realized that 14 million on the Jazz Festival is bad news. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we would like to see a greater allocation of our monies going towards the marketing of the destination, promotions with tour operators, strategic placements in publications that are influential. Madam Speaker, social media campaigns so that we can maximize the visibility of St. Lucia in a field of increasing competition, Madam Speaker, from all of the regions. And so, Madam Speaker, this is what the St. Lucia Tourism Authority will spearhead. And there's a tremendous difference between the two organizations in that the St. Lucia Tourism Authority depoliticizes the marketing approach of the government. So that now, within the proposed St. Lucia Tourism Authority bill, which will be made to Parliament, we will be, Madam Speaker, giving the private sector a greater stake at the table. So the structure proposes 7 board members, and 3 of those board members will be appointed or nominated by the opposition. Madam Speaker, this is revolutionary. So in order for there to be restructuring, Madam Speaker, we had to restructure the entire organization so that we come with a new thrust. The other difference is that there will be a greater focus on product development. The previous tourist board focused only on the marketing of the destination. Now we're saying that St. Lucia must do something about its product, to develop its product strategically and to spare no effort, Madam Speaker, as it pertains to exciting its product, to better leverage its environmental and its cultural and heritage assets, Madam Speaker. We must ensure that this happens. And so we had to change the structure of the organization. But then another consideration was there was tremendous debt. And the $10 million in liabilities which the Tourist Board has, Madam Speaker, stymied the functionality of the institution, which was called upon to deliver the goods, to market the destination. And so, Madam Speaker, what we had to do was to ensure that we can pay our suppliers on time. We don't want to be in a situation where PR companies are threatening to end their contracts with us, as been the case with a PR company in one of our main markets. And so, Madam Speaker, we are also on a path to ensure that we change the financing arrangement of the Tourist Board so that we don't have to depend on the current status quo where the capital expenditure would fund the Tourist Board, but where we would seek in the future, Madam Speaker, to find a more sustainable mechanism to advance the financing of the Tourist Board. These are some of the holistic and overall changes that we're making to develop the tourism industry here in St. Lucia. Madam Speaker, there will be a big thrust on entrepreneurship, on training of our young people. There'll be a big thrust, Madam Speaker, on perfecting the long-held aspiration of linkages between tourism and all the other sectors. Because this government is convinced of one thing, and that is, Madam Speaker, that tourism's success is never measured by arrival numbers only, but it is measured, Madam Speaker, by the economic impact of the industry. So, for example, when I tell you that cruise arrivals are going to grow by 27%, what does it mean for farmers? What does it mean for the manufacturing sector? What does it mean for the day boat charters? What does it mean for craft vendors? What does it mean to local restaurants? And so, Madam Speaker, it is not just about the growth in arrival numbers, but a better economic footprint is being sought after for the industry. And I am excited, Madam Speaker, at some of the policy issues that we are about to implement. I think that they will make a tremendous difference to the livelihoods of the people in St. Lucia. We will increase the level of entrepreneurship participation in this country with the implementation of village tourism, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to talk to you a bit about this, in that village tourism, Madam Speaker, will focus on 8 villages, and the Prime Minister did allude to it in his budget speech last night. And what we are seeking to do is to better leverage the environmental, cultural, and heritage assets of our villages, to better celebrate them, to better include them in the tourism mix of our country. And so, Madam Speaker, as we operate this in an era of increasing online travel agencies like Airbnb, a familiar one, and TripAdvisor, and so on, Madam Speaker, what village tourism will seek to do is to allow St. Lucians at all levels to participate in the accommodation sector of the industry. That's one of the things that it will do. So all of a sudden now, someone owning an apartment in Castries East, for example, can now participate in the accommodation subsector of the tourism industry. Madam Speaker, I'm very excited about this for my own constituency of Ancillary and Canaries, and other constituencies as well. I'm sure that the Honourable Member for Grosley North, who likes to tell us that he is in the tourism hub of the country, is very excited about this one as well. But Madam Speaker, village tourism will be a training hub. We will train all of the entrepreneurs to develop their product. It will be a standards hub. It will standardize, Madam Speaker, a non-traditional accommodation sector, which presently is in the wild, wild west. And so we need to bring that sector, Madam Speaker, bring it together so that we can have standards, so that we can have training, so that we can brand them, so that we can market them, so that we can ensure that we give training in management and in how to run effectively a small hotel operation. And so it's a great opportunity for St. Lucian nationals to participate in this. If you are looking at this broadcast and you are thinking of increasing your income and you have the potential to expand your property, this is the movement that we're on to revolutionize the accommodation sector in this country by ensuring that when we come into this house and we talk about an investor, that we're talking about ordinary St. Lucians. We're talking about small and big people. That when we come into this house and we read, statutory instruments, we see that there are concessions given to big and small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. So, Madam Speaker, it's a very exciting time to be in tourism. Madam Speaker, if you would allow me, I would like to talk a bit about the National Tourism Council, which my government will also institute as part of our comprehensive and overall restructuring of the industry. Madam Speaker, at present, what exists is a situation whereby the Ministry of Tourism is called upon by its stakeholders to solve all kinds of different problems, from water quality issues to safety and security issues, to road issues, all kinds of issues. But, Madam Speaker, because of the structure of government, the ministry has a very limited responsibility. And so what we have decided to do as a government is to form a National Tourism Council, bringing together very key and relevant organizations from the public and private sector, so that, Madam Speaker, there'll be greater cohesion as it relates to the development of the tourism industry, so that tourism can play a greater role, Madam Speaker, as a lead economic sector to the development of our economy. And so, Madam Speaker, that is a very exciting proposal. Madam Speaker, we're also looking at our airlift strategy. As Madam Speaker, we can have the best rooms and the best destinations, but if there's no access to the destination, then it's going to be very difficult for people to get to our country. And so, Madam Speaker, we have decided that we are going to continue to expand existing airline routes, Madam Speaker, but also to look at new strategic routes where we can expand the summer months, Madam Speaker, which has traditionally been very low in terms of occupancy and arrivals. And Madam Speaker, we want to have a situation in this country where there's no low season, where every single month is a month that counts for this tourism industry. And so, Madam Speaker, we're looking at destinations where their peak travel periods coincide with our low season or our low travel periods. And so, for example, we're looking at the Texas market, for example, Madam Speaker, which has a very harsh summer. And that summer, Madam Speaker, does act as a motivation for several people from the Texas market to travel to various parts of the world to escape the heat. And so, Madam Speaker, we will reposition St. Lucia so that for the first time we will have a flight from key cities from Texas, Madam Speaker, so that we can spur further growth, Madam Speaker, in the summer months into our destination. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to ask you to permit me to talk for a bit about sustainable tourism, as it has been a topic, Madam Speaker, dominating in the local political and civil debate over the past months. Coincidentally, the United Nations has declared, through its World Tourism Organization, has declared the year 2017 as the year of sustainable tourism. And Madam Speaker, the UNWTO has done so by ensuring that there are 3 pillars for international tourism. And that is, Madam Speaker, we're looking at one pillar would be environmental, the other pillar, social, and the other pillar, the economic contribution that tourism can play, Madam Speaker. It is worthy, Madam Speaker, to note that in 3 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, that 3 of them have very strong relevance to tourism. And those, Madam Speaker, would include Sustainable Goal number 8, which speaks to promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, unemployment, and decent work for all. And Sustainable Goal 12, Madam Speaker, which ensures the sustainable consumption and production patterns. And Madam Speaker, Sustainable Goal 14, which speaks to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, the seas, and marine resources, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, it is with this intent that the United Nations, they have attempted to change the way that tourism is perceived as an enemy of the environment. And that has been largely characterized by the ensuing debate as it pertains to the DSH project. And Madam Speaker, I said earlier how the DSH property have been able to build in an environmentally sensitive area, revered by the Swiss government as one of their green spaces, and was able to do so successfully. Madam Speaker, closer to home, we have very, very proud examples in Fedi plantation, which was a cocoa industry, a cocoa plantation, Madam Speaker. But when the cocoa industry died, Madam Speaker, tourism restored it. Lathan and Ireland Lamentine, they had the vision, Madam Speaker, to take our heritage from chattel houses and bring them to a derelict cocoa plantation and restore the houses in conditions that are better than they were previously, and brought them onto a cocoa plantation that couldn't sustain itself economically. And Madam Speaker, because of a responsible tourism development, they were able to salvage what was a dying industry in St. Lucia. And the same can be said for Hotel Chocolat across the road, Madam Speaker, which did the very same thing by revitalizing the Rabbit Estate, Madam Speaker, a family estate that was going to the ruins. And now, Madam Speaker, by placing some villas, by responsibly developing the area, they were able to maximize the potential of that land. And so, Madam Speaker, we need to stop seeing tourism as an enemy to the environment, but rather see tourism, Madam Speaker, as an agent of change to environmental preservation, Madam Speaker. That is what we have to see. Madam Speaker, I believe that when we implement village tourism, that village tourism will cause our communities to appreciate, Madam Speaker, the value the environment plays as it pertains to economic development. And it is through tourism that they'll be able to see that. I believe that there will be a renewed respect for coral reefs. I believe, Madam Speaker, that there will be a renewed respect for Maria Island that our friends are making an issue. I believe, Madam Speaker, that tourism will cause our people, Madam Speaker, to respect our beaches more. I believe that tourism, Madam Speaker, will be that agent of change, that vehicle which our country needs, Madam Speaker, to stir up and inspire new action as it pertains to the way we treat the environment. Madam Speaker, I would like to take these few moments to address a few other matters in the bill. Madam Speaker, I am very proud that my government sees it fit in this bill to inject an amount of $49.3 million into the agricultural sector. And then I would proudly like to say that the Minister of Agriculture knows very well that the farmers of the Roseau Valley area does contribute significantly to the overall banana production of the country. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm glad to see that the banana revitalization program will benefit a number of our farmers significantly with the feeder roads, with the desilting of main waterways, with the advancement of drainage, and all the other good stuff that you have for the farmers. I would really like to say to you that the farmers of Jacmel, Millet, Roseau, and surrounding communities are inspired by this budget, and they are looking forward, Mr. Minister, for your intervention, because we do have a few failed projects in the constituency, namely the Youth in Agriculture project at Roseau. I'm really relying on you, Mr. Minister, to address that situation so that we can replace the bushes at Roseau, Mr. Minister, with proper agriculture. Okay, so I thank you, Mr. Minister, that you will address that situation for us, and you will bring renewed hope to the young people of Roseau, of Millet, of Jacmel, of Ancillary and Canneries, and you will institute a proper Youth in Agriculture project. And so, Madam Speaker, I was also delighted to hear that the Ancillary Health Center and the health sector in generally of the country, Madam Speaker, has been given some attention in this appropriation bill. And, you know, Madam Speaker, a healthy nation is a strong nation. And I would like to say that I'm very grateful for the $9 odd million which will go towards the reconstruction of the Ancillary Health Center, as the current facility, Madam Speaker, is very inadequate where the current health center is located. There haven't been dental services in the community for quite some time, And so, Madam Speaker, I am looking forward to a resumption of a more adequate and sufficient facility so that we can return to a more comprehensive and a more meaningful health sector in the ancillary community. Madam Speaker, I also heard the road construction program for this government, Madam Speaker, is quite substantial and comprehensive, looking at community roads, looking at secondary roads, looking at major roadways in the country, Madam Speaker, with a view to improving the road network of this country. Madam Speaker, I am proud that we are being transparent with the people of St. Lucia, and we're telling them exactly what we're doing with the monies. My constituency is a victim of many bad roads. And yes, those roads they didn't appear overnight, but we inherited them from a previous administration. Madam Speaker, I would like to indicate that I am most proud that the road from Roseau to Vanna is going to receive an adequate allocation for its rightful restoration in this budget cycle, Madam Speaker, where the Minister for Infrastructure quoted a substantial sum of $4.9 million, Madam Speaker, which will be going to the rehabilitation of that road. Madam Speaker, the story has been frustrating to a lot of those people, where some of the bus drivers refuse to go via that route because of the immotorable state of the road. And so, Madam Speaker, it is really, really uncaring, unkind, Madam Speaker, and unsympathetic that we would allow mothers to go grocery shopping and have to walk miles because there is no transportation plying the route to their house. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm very pleased and happy that there is some relief coming for the people of the Munda community in particular, Madam Speaker, which have been suffering from neglect to this road. Madam Speaker, this road is a true point for people from the areas of Millet, from Jackmel, and from Sarat, which is a neighboring constituency in Castries Southeast. So, Madam Speaker, this is a very good policy. There are a number of farmers that will benefit from this road as well. And none least than the honorable member for Grosley, who does have a farm in the constituency. Madam Speaker, the road project, we will see in this cycle a World Bank project, Madam Speaker, to reconstruct the ruins of Hurricane Thomas, where the destruction of the road from Venus to Ancillary will receive much needed attention in this budget cycle. And so we will open up a number of farm areas, a number of important touristic sites will come back into operation, Madam Speaker, as a result of this intervention by our government. And so, Madam Speaker, as we speak about roads, I also want to thank the people of Munda for giving me the opportunity Madam Speaker, to complete a community road under the Constituency Development Program, which, Madam Speaker, is long overdue. And I want to thank the people of Munda for their patience. They have, Madam Speaker, placed their trust in administrations after administrations, only to be disappointed by empty promises. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm very, very pleased that we have been able to do this community road in Munda. And, Madam Speaker, what we will do is there will be a phase 2 component of that road. Madam Speaker, as we speak, I see that there is money is also allocated for other road rehabilitation programs, which will benefit roads in Techime, in Baden, in Monsizo, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the engineers from the Ministry of Infrastructure have already carried out estimates on roads with a view to rehabilitating them in Riverside Road, in Canaries, on both sides of the river, including the Valley Road. Madam Speaker, farm roads in Canaries Valley will also receive much attention in this budget. Madam Speaker, the De La Go Road, De La Gore Road in Jackmel, by the Charles and the Foswa family. I'm also pleased that this road is receiving much attention. And then, as well, Madam Speaker, community roads in Boisden under the CP project will be done in this budget cycle. I'm also very happy, Madam Speaker, that there has been an increase by $11 million in social services, Madam Speaker, which will focus on playing fields in the area of sports, Madam Speaker, which will focus on school maintenance, Madam Speaker, which my constituency will benefit from. Madam Speaker, also a number of other initiatives like community centers that are in need of restoration, and so one that is earmarked, Madam Speaker, to be prioritized is the Derando Community Center.
Honorable member, you now have 15 minutes within which to complete your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so we will, Madam Speaker, give attention to the Derando Community Center, which has been dilapidated for many years, Madam Speaker, and it is now the home for many homeless people of the community of Millet. And so, Madam Speaker, we would like to make use of this investment to ensure that this investment goes into what it was intended for, and that is for the development of the people of Millet, where they can have meetings and where they can have training and development and so on. Madam Speaker, I see a number of other programs here, Madam Speaker, highlighted for the desilting of the rivers. And as you know, Madam Speaker, the constituency of Ancillary Canneries has often been a victim of many of the floods. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to commend the Ministry of Infrastructure for their sustained program of flood mitigation so that they can desilt the rivers, Madam Speaker, in time for the rainy seasons so that we reduce the potential of flooding, particularly in the low-lying villages of Ancillary and Canneries. We want to ensure, Madam Speaker, that we leave no stone unturned so that we can adequately ensure that we reduce the possibility of flooding. And so that in itself, Madam Speaker, will be a tremendous boost for the constituency. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to also commend the government for the jobs, the short-term, the National Apprenticeship Program, of which 10 million has been allocated to in this budget. And Madam Speaker, I think that what this will do is that it will create a buffer, it will create a training opportunity. You see, the issue we had with NICE, Madam Speaker, was not that the intention of NICE to give people short-term employment. We weren't against that. What we were against is that NICE did not have an adequate training outlet, Madam Speaker. That's what we were talking about. And so in this National Apprenticeship Program, you will see that there is going to be a renewed focus on training. There's going to be a renewed focus on the development of our young people. And you will see, Madam Speaker, where in this initiative, several of our young people will receive the opportunity to first get experience, to grow, to receive training, and Madam Speaker, most importantly, to find out who they really are as professionals. And so this budget, Madam Speaker, has my tremendous blessing. It has my unrelenting support, Madam Speaker. I will stand on the mountaintop, Madam Speaker, and I will shout, Madam Speaker, loud, that this budget will liberate the people of St. Lucia from their economic and social malaise, Madam Speaker, which were largely due to the policies of the last 4.5 years by our friends. And so, Madam Speaker, it is time for us to change. And I love the fact, Madam Speaker, that we've come in, we've looked at the situation, and we're not just talking. We are moving. And I think that perhaps some of the difficulty that with some of the noises and the people making the noises is that they are not used to implementation. They are used to coming and doing feasibility studies and putting those studies and reports on shelves, and Madam Speaker, never do anything to bring about change, to bring about prosperity, to bring about improvement and opportunities in the lives of the people, Madam Speaker. But clearly in this budget, Madam Speaker, we are about implementation, we are about transformation of the public service, of our policies. We're going to put our policies in trial, Madam Speaker. We're not afraid to do so. We are as open as a book. We are as transparent as they come. And Madam Speaker, we're not afraid to make those decisions that we believe are in the best interest of the people of St. Lucia, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of which party they vote for. Madam Speaker, there has been no victimization, Madam Speaker, in what we do. Madam Speaker, I believe that our country has an opportunity with the policies that we have prescribed in this budget, Madam Speaker, to transform itself, to liberate itself from its dark economic past. And Madam Speaker, to unleash and usher in a new era, Madam Speaker, of holistic growth, opportunity, Madam Speaker, for all of its people. I support this bill. I thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
All right, Stephanie Bill.
Honorable Member for Castries Central and Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, Responsibility for External Affairs.
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me the floor. As I rise to support the Appropriation Bill 2017-2018 as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, there is so much to say and so little time to say it. But first, I would like to say that I was very encouraged and I have received very good feedback from my constituents on the budget presentation of the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday. And, Madam Speaker, there are very clear reasons to be optimistic about this budget as we seek to build, as per our promise, a prosperous and progressive St. Lucia for the benefit of all. This is the contract that we entered into with the people of St. Lucia. This is our mandate, and this is why the people voted us in on June 6th. And I was very pleased to hear the Honorable Prime Minister say, Madam Speaker, after he outlined a bold and comprehensive development plan, laying the basis for our work over the next 4 years, to say that this plan is anchored on the pillars of the individual, the family, and the community. And this shows seriousness and vision. I just want to focus a little bit on the individual, because at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, if our projects and programs are not people-centered, we can build structures. It's easy to build structures, but if our projects and programs are not people-centered, we will not build the St. Lucia that we want to call home. And so that is very important. And I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Honorable Prime Minister in this budget, and I hope the opposition can join me in that regard, to thank the Prime Minister for doubling the allocation for constituency offices, which benefits all of our constituents. And I remember when I started on this journey in 1997, Madam Speaker, we did not have allocations for constituency offices when we started. The Member of Parliament had to foot that bill from his own pocket. And can you imagine what it was like for me in Castle Central trying to rent premises from my own pocket? And the St. Lucia Labour Party government gave an allocation of $30,000, which was welcome, but which just could not satisfy the needs of the constituents, because they are the ones we serve. Madam Speaker, I don't have a key to my constituency office. I don't know what the key looks like. I don't keep the key in my possession. It's the people's office. I have no reason to go there except to meet the people. And we need offices that are staffed. Can you imagine what rent in Castle Central is? For this financial year, I had $22,000. Because by the time we got in June, monies had already been spent, of course, understandably, by the previous parliamentary representative to run the office. And so I had $22,000 for 10 months. $2,200 to pay rent, to pay staff, utilities, stationery, you name it, to run an office, to serve the people. So what kind of service is that? That's a government office, which comes under your office, by the way, Madam Speaker. So I think that you will be seeing, certainly from my constituency, an even greater level of efficiency as we serve the people. And I do want to take this opportunity to thank your staff. They are extremely cooperative and extremely helpful to us. They come to visit and see what we do, and they always respond in a very timely manner. So I do want to congratulate the staff of Parliament as they help us serve the people in our constituency offices. Madam Speaker, I just want to explain a little bit the system that we have, which we have implemented, and we are, of course, working to improve it as we go along, so that the Minister of Finance can be assured that the allocation is well spent, and perhaps in the next financial year, we might see even an increase in this allocation. Yes, Madam Speaker. I mean, we're running a government office, really, that's what it is. So, Madam Speaker, we, as I indicated on the last occasion when I spoke, we have seen a total of 525 people, that is new people, not people, we're not checking the repeat visits. And, Madam Speaker, we have all kinds of requests that come to us. All kinds of requests, Madam Speaker, that the Member of Parliament is expected to deal with and respond. And sometimes it is heartbreaking to see someone comes to you 3, 4, 5 times for a job. The person needs health care, the person needs housing, and you just find that your hands are tied. And so the system we have developed in an effort to keep track of what we're doing, to make sure we serve the people in the best way possible. Persons come in, Madam Speaker, and we do ask them to bring in a picture. It doesn't have to be an ID card, and sometimes people are reluctant. Why do you want my picture? Well, I did make a commitment, or I did make a promise, so I did express to my constituents what my goal is, the kind of service I would like to give, and I did say after I won that I would like to know each constituent by name. So this picture helps me put a name to a face. And we take some basic information, so we know the constituents who have children who are at school, so perhaps when the bursary program comes along, we know already who it is, who perhaps might be in need, so we can call them. And Madam Speaker, every time someone visits, we keep a record of what it is they came to ask for and how we are making progress. And then we have a spreadsheet that can be reviewed. And what I've asked my staff to do is to put it on a jump drive for me, so that wherever I go in the world, I can check the email that comes directly to me, and I can see what progress I've made in dealing with a matter affecting constituent. And that is the level of service. That is what putting the individual first is all about. This is what a people-centered approach to government is all about. And so I'm talking about this here because I am really excited about the fact that now perhaps I can pay my hard-working staff at the constituency just a little bit more. Of course, your office will have to approve my budget, Madam Speaker. But I've been accused by my colleagues of underpaying my staff, because that's all we had. In fact, we have staff at the office who work purely on a volunteer basis. And I so appreciate the help they give, because I'm telling you, Castries Central is not an easy constituency. I love my constituents dearly, but you would appreciate that my constituency presents me with many challenges. So this is just one of the things I think in the budget that's such an excellent move, and I wish to thank the Prime Minister for hearing our cries and putting this money in there for all constituencies. Madam Speaker, I would like, while I'm on the matters relating to my constituency, to just speak about unemployment just a little bit, because really, when a man is not able to feed his family, he loses his dignity. And when I say a man, I mean a woman too. I've had people come to my constituency office who you can see are visibly embarrassed. There are people coming to constituency offices who are telling you, I have never come to a politician before. And they say, I'm coming to you because it's a last resort. Madam Speaker, there are people, and I had this document here and I'm looking for it. Madam Speaker, there are people who will not go to the constituency offices in their constituencies because they're ashamed, because it's such a small country. Because persons will know they came to look for help. And so we see people from all constituencies, as I said before, and we don't turn them away. Just to give you an idea of the things people come to us for, we've had 290 persons come in for employment. For health, for direct help with paying their health bills, 25 persons. And these are people from the constituency and people from outside the constituency. For home repairs or housing-related issues, 49. Persons directly requesting to be put on the public assistance list, 13. And I'm sure there are many more people who need public assistance. In fact, sometimes the people who need it most do not come. I just want to share with you, Madam Speaker, if you will allow me, a WhatsApp message that I received from one of the home helpers in my constituency. Because these people go out there and they see things that we do not see. There's nothing like doing visits in your constituency. Time is limited, and sometimes I don't get a chance to walk around as often as I do, as I need to. But Madam Speaker, when you visit a home, you see how people live. And there are many things that they don't tell you that you see, and you see the suffering and you understand it. So this is what a home helper tells me. And Madam Speaker, I am one of those MPs. My phone is public. I haven't changed the number maybe for the last 5 years. And because of that, I get many WhatsApps at all times of day and night. And I have to confess, I can hardly respond to so many of them. But this caretaker tells me, "Good morning, miss," and she gives me her name. "I was placed at home yesterday and it's not healthy. The roof is leaking, the lady's bed is covered with bed bugs, rats make babies inside, and they're running everywhere. She needs medical. Before I start, I am letting you know. Her name is so-and-so of Waterworks Road. Thank you." This is what people endure in my constituency, and I'm certain it happens everywhere. So I want to really commend the Honorable Prime Minister on the plans in this budget to establish a central registry database that will collect in a central point all information that is pertinent to the social situation of people. So that people like this lady, I want to thank the home helper who sent me this WhatsApp. Immediately, I sent it off to the supervisor of the program, and I said, "Look here, can you please look into this?" And my staff at the office were able to follow up. I want to thank the home helper who sent this, and there's so many situations like that. So I want to commend the Honorable Prime Minister and our government for keeping the home help and going a step further, because we must look out for people in need, not necessarily wait for them to come to see us. Because sometimes they can't come or will not come for reasons. Speaking of which, Madam Speaker, in terms of what my goal and dream is for my constituency, I've got a number of older people coming to see me, 80, 90, climbing those steps and waiting. Personally, Madam Speaker, I feel that from the time you've hit 80, I should be coming to see you. There's no need for an 80-year-old person to be waiting half an hour in my constituency office to see me. I should be the one coming to see you. We're not there yet, but that is where we want to be. And hopefully, with this allocation, there'll be time for us to do more things, and that will give me more time to go out there to the constituency and meet with the people who I need to meet with. Madam Speaker, a lot of the home helpers do not have supplies. They go to the homes, and before they can start doing something, there's nothing. There's no disinfectants, there's no stuff to wash up. They need supplies. And again, I'm hoping with that central registry database, we will better be able to identify the needs people have and who the people are who have those needs, and be able to plan ahead. But what we have taken the step to do is to go out there and beg, and we're putting together a list of supplies or a stock room of supplies in our constituency office, so that the home helpers out there, when they go to the homes to care for these persons, whatever is needed can be provided. This is not a government that victimizes people. We don't ask whether this lady votes Labour or United Workers' Party. If there is a need, we respond to it, because that's what we've been elected for. So, Madam Speaker, I was just sharing some of the figures pertaining to the people we've seen at the constituency. We've had 43 in total coming for help with school, books, and whatever have you. Financial assistance, 18. Well, financial assistance, I'm sure this figure is much less than the actual figure, because when I write on these notes, I write in a way that protects confidentiality. But I have to tell you that many more people seek financial assistance from the MP. And we have other forms of assistance, 50 people wanting land to build homes, 18. I will couple that with housing and add the figure. So, Madam Speaker, another pillar that the Prime Minister spoke about was family. And I have to say, Madam Speaker, and I think I've said this many times in this honorable House, that unless we build family in this country, we can't move forward. I want to refer to a World Youth Country study that was done by the World Bank. And I do have copies here, Madam Speaker, because I would like to make this study a document of the House, and if the Sergeant would assist me in distributing the copies. Just to say very quickly what the study that was done of Caribbean youth by the World Bank in 2003. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, that it's dated, but this is the best we have as far as I am aware. And I am sure the findings here are as true today as they were at the time of the study. And there are some things we don't need a study to tell us. But some people like to have studies. That's why we have so many reports all around the place. But in any event, I would like to refer to the executive summary where it speaks about the family. And this is a study specifically on the Caribbean and what the issues were affecting Caribbean youth. And it came up with recommendations as the policy directions to address these issues affecting Caribbean youth. So it reads at the executive summary XV1, the family is both the strongest protective factor and the strongest risk factor for youth behavior and outcomes. It is protective in that family connectedness, appropriate levels of parental discipline, moral guidance, protection from dangers in the adult world, and economic support allow young people to acquire personal and social skills while young. Conversely, parental displays of negative behaviors, substance abuse, violence, physical, sexual, and emotional abuse by family members, and the absence of parental guidance is what are risk factors. See, I didn't need a report to tell me that. I'm just quoting this to show that in the Prime Minister's wisdom, very early on in his budget, before he went on to explain all of the things as a government we were going to do to provide jobs, to encourage investment, to build on our justice system, he said what the anchors were, the pillars upon which all this is going to be built on. And just to refer to another study, Madam Speaker, and this time it's the World Fertility Report of 2007. I have copies which, if you may, which reports that St. Lucia had the highest rate of extramarital births in the world. If you see at page 32, Madam Speaker. The highest rate of extramarital births in the world, 85.8%, St. Lucia. Now, I don't need to bring a report here to talk about why it is important to have both parents in a home raising children. I don't need to come and talk about the importance of a mother and a father raising a child. This is the ideal situation. This is the best environment for the wholesome and healthy upbringing of a child. It is the best environment. Of course, we have many single parents who do a wonderful job, and we have to commend them. I explained myself, Madam Speaker, on the last occasion when I spoke, that there are situations that cause families to be separated. My children are away from me while I'm here. And again, I thank my husband for doing an excellent job. But we make sacrifices, but this is not the ideal situation. And as I say often to my colleagues, I'll have now and then to go back to my nest. And I shall be doing that on Saturday after we finish, hopefully, this house. It is important. And so, Madam Speaker, we're talking here about the ideal. And it is unacceptable that we have the highest rate of extramarital births in the world. 85.8%, and Panama came after 79.9%. Now, one might say that these figures that I've just quoted from 2007 are dated. So I got the 2013 report, but it does not break down the figures in this way. So this is the best we have. But I don't think anyone here would suggest that the pattern has changed. And we see the result of that. We see the result of that. We're talking, we have over 500 males in prison. Fathers who should be home with their children, in the community, building the society, are in prison. And these are things, Madam Speaker, that we have to look at really seriously. That is why when I said on the last occasion that I spoke that I welcome all the work that agencies want to do in my constituency. I welcome that. But let us make sure that these monies, grant funding, even though they may be, are used in a manner that builds and does not further destroy. And so I will be looking to work very closely with the funding agencies that are doing projects in my constituency to ensure that we do not throw good money away, that we have programs that are targeted and that can deal with the issues as they need to be dealt with. Madam Speaker, whilst I'm on the issue of the family, and I'm not finished yet with my constituency, but while I'm on the issue of the family, I want to talk about boys, men, girls, and women. Because I think we have neglected the needs of boys in our community, in our country, and we have also not been very fair to the men in our country. Now, maybe the Minister for Gender Relations, she's looking at me, wanting to know what I will say next. Madam Speaker, clearly there needs to be some research, some focus, some attention on the whole issue of men in our society. Because women need men. Women need good men. And of course, there are a lot of situations in our society where men have not lived up to the expectations, and measures have to be taken to deal with that. But I think there are a lot of good men left in our society, and there are a lot of good men left in our society. There are many good men in our society still. We need to encourage them, and we need to make sure that they are accorded their rightful place in the family, in the society, and in the community. And our policies must make it very clear that we support and encourage men to take their role. And Madam Speaker, it has to start with us women in our homes. Again, men love respect. Men like to know that they are respected. women like to not be respected too. And Madam Speaker, I think if the change can start with us women in how we treat our men, if the change can start with us women in how we treat our men, I think we will get the best out of them. I'm not making excuses for irresponsible men. I'm not doing that. But I pride myself on believing that there is nothing I ask my husband that I can't get. It depends on how I ask and when I ask. Yes, Madam Speaker. We women have a role to play in bringing out the best in our men, and we have to begin to do that. And we have to start with our boys, how we treat them at home, the respect we give our boys at home. Because it's mostly women raising boys, because of the fact we have so many single-headed female households. So, Madam Speaker, these are things I just wanted to throw out there. The Minister for Gender Relations, of course, will deal with these issues more in depth. But while I'm on it, I cannot but mention the Boys Training Center at Masad, because that is a glaring example of how we have treated our boys who are children. And Madam Speaker, there are reports that have spoken about this. Again, we don't need a report. But I am encouraged by the fact that I know currently under our administration, some work is going on to see what enhancements can be done currently to the facility, and that we have pledged in our manifesto to do something about this once and for all. But Madam Speaker, the issue of family is really important. And I will continue to advocate for policies that ensure we have strong families. I want to go back to my constituency and linking the whole issue of family to the importance of housing. Madam Speaker, you know, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to raise your children in a structured way if you do not have adequate housing. Just teaching your children basic things in the home is difficult if you have people, families, children sleeping one on top of each other. Madam Speaker, do you know poor housing contributes to child abuse? Do you know that? Madam Speaker, do you know that poor housing contributes to early sexual initiation in children? You know that? It does. It contributes to so many social ills, so we have to address it. I want to go back to the report on youth, which I believe you already have, Madam Speaker. You have a copy of this already. And again, at page, the executive summary, 14X1V, last paragraph, the onset of sexual initiation in the Caribbean is the earliest in the world. Are you surprised? With the exception of Africa, where early sexual experiences take place within marriage. And in this study, if you read the document itself, Madam Speaker, which I have, of course, made a document of the House. I didn't photocopy the entire thing, but it is available on the internet if you will follow the subject heading. St. Lucia and Jamaica were two of the countries that were studied in this report. So this is very serious. But on the question of housing, and I spoke of the number of requests we've received, this is very, very urgent. And I understand that this budget is laying the basis for our development agenda. Of course, the Prime Minister said, unless we grow the economy, we don't have the money to do what we have to do. This is why we're practicing austerity measures, and this is why we're aggressively going out to encourage investment, because unless we grow the economy, we will not have the money to do all these fundamentally important things that we need to do. But on the question of housing, Madam Speaker, I just want to say that I would like to see some relief brought to my constituents who are in great need of housing. As I go to Bois-Patat and Montjudon and Wilton's Yard and Grass Street, the housing needs in Castries Central is critical. And I wrote a letter to the Chief Surveyor. I want to thank the officer at Crown Lands who's been working with me on this. And I also want to thank the Chief Surveyor for his very speedy response to my request. I've asked him to see whether some of the lands in Montjudon, if there could be some kind of survey done of the lands in Montjudon with a view to being able to identify some area where lands could be made available to persons, of course, through the normal government channels where they would have to lease it. And he has sent me some recommendations which he thinks can be achieved if I do certain things in terms of getting the powers that be to go ahead and do a topographical survey of the parcels identified, a subdivision design, getting the design approved at DCA, and trying to see if we can get some lots that the government can perhaps lease to people to at least provide some help in the meantime. Madam Speaker, we have many more needs in the constituency that need to be addressed. I will run through these very quickly. Lighting, we have had many requests for street lights. And that is very important in Castries Central, particularly in areas where there are high levels of crime. We have people coming from work very late, they get mugged repeatedly, and it is really important that we have street lights in Castries Central. I welcome the initiative that the Prime Minister mentioned in the budget to put CCTV cameras in certain locations, but in these remote locations, I doubt that the CCTV cameras will reach there. We have written to the Ministry of Infrastructure, and I am waiting for the Minister to tell us when the lights will be available for my constituency. So I just want to tell all those constituents who have made requests for street lights, where we have gone and taken the reference numbers on the poles, we have sent our request in, and we are waiting for the Minister or the member for Castries North to come back to us on this. Madam Speaker, we have been able to execute a number of projects in the community in terms of sidewalks, retaining walls. We were able to do projects in Montjudon, Bois-Patat, Rose Hill, Sanssouci, Georgeville, Piats Gap, Lance Road, Leslie Land, Trinity Church Road, but there are so many more needs than we have been able to address. And I just want to reassure residents of Elastic Hill, they have many needs. We have not been able to do anything there. Grass Street, the Pansy, that we have taken note of the projects that need to be done, and in fact, we have costed a number of them here, and we're just waiting for the allocation. So, as we say sometimes, delay doesn't mean denial. Your cries have been heard, but we needed to pass this budget to begin to address some of these issues, and things still will not be able to happen overnight because we cannot spend what we do not have. So, Madam Speaker, I want to speak about also the solid waste services in my constituency need to be improved. The number of pictures I've gotten from constituents about garbage that hasn't been picked up, where constituents have had themselves to be the one doing the work for the Solid Waste Management Authority. I fear that constituents will lose patience with me on this. And so I am urging, begging, particularly in the areas of Montjudon, Wapatat, Lastic Hill, the garbage is not picked up on a regular basis, and that is a serious issue, and it is an issue of poor health, poor sanitary conditions. And if people have contracts and they're not doing their work, then we have to review these contracts and get people who can do the work that they are being paid for. Madam Speaker, we live in a country where politicians are criticized, are vilified, are blamed for almost everything under the sun. And it is not fair that you can be contracted to do a job, be paid for it, and you don't do it, and you still get paid. And then the politician now has to take the blame for it. And the people have to keep on suffering. It's not right. So, Madam Speaker, I intend to meet with the solid waste. I've already spoken to one or two of the officers. I intend to meet with the Solid Waste Management Authority so they can give me some assurance and explain to me why it is the garbage collection in my constituency is so poor. I just want to speak a little bit about Grass Street and the Walcott project, because the member for Castries East said he passed by Grass Street. Now, passing by somewhere is not going there. There are many places you can pass by. And he passed by there for true, because some of what he said was just not true. Because on Friday, I took two of my colleagues there, and we went there. We didn't pass there. We went and met with the people and stayed there and chatted with them. So don't tell me you pass by Grass Street. I would be so happy at any time of day or night to take the honorable member for Castries East down to visit the people of Grass Street. Right? So the members spoke about the people, you know, the Walker Place, the people are so much a part of the project. But that's exactly what they were complaining about on Friday, that they were not part of the project.
That's right.
So when you tell me you passed by Grass Street, you passed there for true, you didn't go there. Because we went there to resolve that very issue, that the people were complaining that whereas they embraced the project, they were not included in it. They didn't feel part of it. That was the problem there. Madam Speaker, the Walker Place, the museum is open. You know, not one person from Grass Street is employed in this. Do you know that? Not one person from Grass Street is employed in this place, Madam Speaker. And they have a serious problem with that. And why were the works halted there? Because the people called on us and said, look here, they're building a road and they want to offer one or two of us 2 little day jobs, and we do not want that. We want to be part of building this community. They were complaining that they were being left out. So, Madam Speaker, St. Lucia, Castries Central doesn't belong to me. But I don't want people coming here talking about my constituency as though they know what's going on in my constituency, just driving past there and coming to speak as though they speak on behalf of my constituents. Don't do that. Don't do that. I know where to find my constituents. My constituents know where to find me. And I am not the only one on top of what's going on in my constituency. I brought my colleagues there. That's where we were at 11 o'clock, was it? No. But it's fine. We can go there at night as well. That's where we were at 11 o'clock on Friday. So don't come and tell me you passed by Grass Street. Next time you want to go there, invite me and I'll be happy to take you there, day or night. So, Madam Speaker, I just want to tell the people of Grass Street that following our meeting with them, that we discussed the way forward. My colleagues and I have again met, and we will ensure, in fact, I will ensure that they are involved in this project, because they do embrace it, but we have to make sure that the project embraces them. So I'm going to make sure that happens. I don't come here and boast and say that I've been the longest serving person here. I don't come here and do that. But I've known these people for long enough. So don't walk into my constituency and say you pass there. And no, Madam Speaker, I will not have that. Castries Central is not Castries East. Castries Central is not Castries East. So, Madam Speaker, I am just going to move quickly to talk about my ministry. On the last occasion I came, I brought a box, and my staff sent me a box again, but I didn't use it this time because I'm going to be very brief. Just to say that, again, in keeping with our pledge, I spoke about all of the reports that told us all the things that were good about the ministry and those that were not too good and needed to be improved. And Madam Speaker, when I thought I was very careful and cautious in relaying to the House some of the things that were written in the report, because I could have read things that sounded worse. Because the criticism or the identification of the challenges in the ministry are very, very serious. And it is not just the report that refers to these challenges. We've had, since I've come in, many heads of departments meetings and policy meetings, where staff themselves have identified the strengths and weaknesses of the ministry. And what the consultant said in his report is nothing that hasn't been said here. So it's not Sarah Flood-Beaubrun that came to the ministry and just decided that all these things needed to be done. They were contained in the box of reports that I brought here. Staff have identified them, and the consultant identified them. Now, Madam Speaker, we must not bury our heads in the sand. If you don't correctly diagnose a problem, you cannot treat it. If you don't correctly diagnose a problem, you cannot treat it. And if you're doing an internal inspection, if you're assessing yourself, it's better to be harder on yourself. It's better for you to be harder on yourself, because you are likely to do a more comprehensive and thorough addressing of the problem if you are more critical about it. And so, I mean, my intention was not to put anybody on the spot. I specifically said when I made my presentation that I was not blaming anybody. I said, if I recall, perhaps not in the exact words that I will say now, but I'm paraphrasing, that successive governments have not addressed the issues at the ministry. I did say that. And I said that we were now going to implement, and that we were going to look at the recommendations of the consultants that came before the one we brought presently, to bring all these suggestions together. And then I said that. And I thank the staff for their cooperation. I said that we have many hard-working people in there. But the environment does not lend itself for staff to give up their best. And that is why the training and the everything was important. And I thank the staff for working with the consultants. But Madam Speaker, you know,
Honourable Member, you have 15 more minutes within which to complete your
time
presentation.
does go by quickly, Madam Speaker. But I shall continue, and perhaps one of my colleagues will be kind enough to ask for an additional 40 minutes for me, 40. But Madam Speaker, we knew all of this before we came into government, because in our manifesto, Madam Speaker, I don't know if I have to make this a document of the House. I'm sure you might have a copy, but in any event, I just want to refer to page 66 of the manifesto, where we said we'd provide orientation and training for staff, we would revise the foreign service orders, we would adopt a results-oriented approach, we would reposition the External Affairs Ministry, blah, blah, blah. And we said we would pursue the establishment of a School of Diplomacy and International Relations within the proposed Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, University College. And it is this I want to turn to now, because with all of these recommendations, our visioning is, and that is supported by the recommendations that came out of the last report, that we would establish a diplomatic academy. And within that structure, within that framework, we would provide the training that staff needs so we can have a first-class foreign service that is able to lead and guide St. Lucia's foreign relations. So, Madam Speaker, I just want to say very quickly what that diplomatic academy will do. So the promise in the manifesto was to take it to Sir Arthur Lewis, but we can't start it there. So we'll start it where we are, with a view to building over the next 4 years. So it will be both a virtual program as well as occupy a physical space within the ministry. It will be a center of excellence, a learning hub where our staff share knowledge and expertise, where we build and network with academics and institutions, where we draw the best of international expertise. We'll have a formal curriculum and also informal opportunities for staff to learn. Madam Speaker, we will have a foundational course, a practitioner's course, an expert course. And Madam Speaker, we will seek the support of friendly governments. Already we have some of our training planned. That is why I said when I spoke the last time that we won't be needing any extra money. We are confident that we will be able to speak with our friendly governments and they will be able to provide us with expertise to run this academy. And within existing resources, we will ensure that it is implemented. Madam Speaker, I want to say as well that within that academy, we will deal with the issue of protocol so that we will have one seamless operation, ensuring that we attract the brightest and the best, and that we provide our staff with the excellent training that they need to be the face of St. Lucia out there. Madam Speaker, I am going to cut short my presentation because there is something that I really need to address. In everything I've said, I think the topic I'm going to address is a matter of utmost importance. And Madam Speaker, I thought long and hard as to how I should address this and whether I should. Madam Speaker, would you guide me as to how much more time I have at the moment? Because I know that the request has not been made for extra time for me. So I would appreciate your guidance.
You have 10 more minutes.
Okay, I can finish in 10 minutes. Madam Speaker, I want to address the issue regarding the churches
Honourable Member for Castro Southeast.
Madam Speaker, I would like to invoke Section 3210 to allow the member an additional 15 minutes in which to complete her presentation.
Honourable members, the question is that Standing Order 5210 be invoked in order to allow the Honourable Member for Castries Central an additional 15 minutes within which to complete her presentation. I now put the question. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honourable Member, you are now due to complete your presentation at 11:30.
Speaker, thank you, honourable members. Madam Speaker, yes. I was saying that the matter regarding the Catholic Church's statement on the DSH is a matter of utmost importance. It's a matter that has caused me, as a practicing Roman Catholic, great concern. And Madam Speaker, it's a matter I feel compelled to speak on. It was not easy, or it is not an easy task for me to do this. But it's more difficult for me to remain silent. Madam Speaker, there are times when silence is not an option. And this is an occasion. Madam Speaker, I've had to reflect long and hard on this. And I've had to go way back to my childhood, when I was born in the community of Dairy Soap. I was born at home, delivered by a local midwife, a lady who I call my Da. And where I was born, we could hear the church bells ring. And we didn't know what time to go to Mass by the clock. We knew it by the church bell. So when the first bell rang, you knew you had to get ready. When the second bell rang, you knew you had to make your way, start walking. Right, so you could get there before the third bell rang. And that's how I grew up. So those church bells, Madam Speaker, also, I grew up in a family. There were 7 of us, and then 8. My younger sister joined us afterwards. And we spent most of our time outside playing. In those days, children didn't sit inside. You spend the whole day catching butterflies and swimming in the river and picking cashew nuts and catching butterflies and swinging on the mango trees, not the mango trees, the coconut trees. That's what we spent our time doing. I had 4 brothers ahead of me, so you can imagine what our days were like. And that bell, Madam Speaker, from the church, when it rang at 6 o'clock, we would say the Angelus. Children, my parents were nowhere around, because when all 7 of us took off for the whole day, we'd be by the river. And in those days, parents didn't have cell phones. They didn't know where you were, but they trusted you were fine. So when we woke up in the morning, that was it. You would see us at 6 o'clock, and we'd be all over the place doing everything. But that church bell, when we heard it, we stopped and said the Angelus. And my parents didn't have to be there. And my younger sister and I, Jenny, From the age of 3, if the two of us were playing outside, we heard the Angelus, we stopped what we were doing and we said it. Of course, as children, we rushed through it, but that's not the point. This is how we grew up in the Catholic faith. I was probably baptized before I was 4 weeks old. I'm saying this, Madam Speaker, just to tell you how deep, how much I've had to deeply reflect on what happened over the past few days. And if you will permit me, I will do this reflection aloud, because I feel it's necessary to do that. So, Madam Speaker, I was baptized in the Catholic faith, and of course, my parents and godparents took the vow for me when I was only about 4 weeks old. A vow which I myself reaffirmed for myself. And thanks to my mother, I have a little memento here from Sister Iris. I showed it to her recently at Mass, and she couldn't believe I still have it. But I owe that to my mother, who kept it. 12th of February, 1978, 39 years ago. I was confirmed in the faith when I myself took the vows for myself. I took those vows for myself. And these are vows that I renew very often, I would say on a daily basis, because I have chosen for myself that I will be shepherded to my eternal home through my practice within the Catholic faith. So when I speak here, Madam Speaker, I'm speaking as a Catholic. As a Catholic in private life and a Catholic in public life. And that is why this statement in the House for me is important. So, Madam Speaker, I don't want anybody to accuse me of attacking the Catholic Church after I speak here today. I speak as a Catholic. And that's why I told you about my upbringing, so you know, Madam Speaker, where I'm coming from. And I don't want anybody who stood here, and Hansard will prove it, stood here a couple years ago and vilified the Catholic Church, attacked Father Clovis, attacked Father St. Rose. I don't want anybody who did that to accuse me of anything here today. Because I believe in the Catholic faith, and I have chosen the Catholic faith consciously, repeatedly, daily, as my path to my eternal home, my destiny, heaven. So, Madam Speaker, I was very disturbed when I received a WhatsApp which circulated a statement that the church made. I'm just going through a timeline, because I don't believe here is the place to deal with this issue, but there's certain things that I feel that I must say as a Catholic. So the statement was made, and I thought that it was a hoax, to be honest. I thought it was fake. When I saw it, I couldn't believe it. The statement that I later confirmed that the Catholic Church put out on the DSH, that is unprecedented. I've read many statements written by the Catholic Church. I've read many addresses given by the Catholic Church in all spheres, at the United Nations, everywhere. And when I read the statement, I thought it was fake. And in fact, when I spoke to some of the clergy, they themselves thought it was fake. It couldn't believe that the church put out a statement. Madam Speaker, I have to say, I've reread the statement over and over, and on the face of it, it appears to be a political statement. And that is the source of my hurt and pain. That in its content, in the manner in which it was circulated, handed to the government without any discussion at all. I cannot help but see this as a political statement. Madam Speaker, after the government received the statement that was handed to the government by the bishop himself, the government called the church to talk about this. No, the government hasn't said anything publicly about this. The government called on the church to speak about it. And we had a meeting with the church, and we expressed our concern, not about the fact that the church was speaking. We want the church to speak. We encourage the church to speak. The church needs to speak out about the ills in society. But the church needs to do it in a way that's not political. And Madam Speaker, as a Catholic, I view this statement as a political statement. And so my soul searching continues. Madam Speaker, we met with the church and we pointed out what the inaccuracies were in the statement, which the church did not deny. And we asked the church to consider addressing the issue. We got another letter from the church. And when we read the letter, I, as a Catholic, had even more concerns. Because the approach seems to be not one of gathering the flock together, but it appears to be decisive. It appears to be. I may be wrong, and I can still be convinced. And so we still continue dialogue with the church privately, because this government is not about attacking church. This government is about working with church. This administration has always been about working with church. And we will do everything humanly possible to continue to work with the church and have good dialogue and relations with the church. Madam Speaker, in my reflections, I thought about the readings in church on Sunday. Good Shepherd Sunday, for those of us who are Catholics, spoke about the Good Shepherd. Jesus, of course, being the Good Shepherd, who lays down his life for his sheep. Jesus is not with us physically, but he's left his church. And in my context, it's the Catholic faith he's left. And our priests and our bishops are the Good Shepherds who represent Christ. And what are the characteristics of the Good Shepherd? He lays down his life for his sheep. His sheep know his voice and they follow him. He leads them into the sheepfold. He doesn't scatter them. He tends his flock. In his arms, and that's Isaiah 40:11. This is the first time I'm ever quoting a Bible passage in this house. Like a shepherd, he will tend his flock. In his arm, he will gather the lambs and carry them in his bosom. A good shepherd speaks to his sheep. A good shepherd guides and cautions his sheep. A good shepherd will gently lead the nursing ewes. A good shepherd will guide. He will gently lead. He will nudge. The shepherd's staff is a symbol, but it's not just a symbol. The shepherd's staff is used to draw sheep together in an intimate relationship. He seeks to build, to bring together, not to draw apart. The shepherd has to make sure the right lamb gets with the right ewe. For those who have just a few sheep, and these are just my reflections, there will be no problem, but when there are hundreds and sometimes thousands of ewes in one flock, the staff becomes very important. So, Madam Speaker, I am searching for the shepherd. I am searching for the shepherd who will gently and carefully gather the sheep. Madam Speaker, the staff is used in guiding the sheep as they are moving along because the sheep tend to wander off. So, Madam Speaker, I find myself in a dilemma. Because the church is supposed to be that objective moral voice that the whole nation can turn to so that there can be unity. And I'm afraid I cannot find the shepherd. Madam Speaker, I will pause here for now because my search for the shepherd needs to continue. I need to reach my eternal destiny. We are but pilgrims on this earth. And for me, it is a personal journey as well as a public one, because I do not shed my Catholicism when I walk into government. This is who I am. I explained. I was baptized from 4 weeks old, and I reaffirm my vows every day. So, Madam Speaker, the government continues to dialogue with the church. And with the Catholic Church. When we speak of the importance of church, we speak of the importance of all churches. But in this case, Madam Speaker, I am searching for the shepherd that will lead me. And so, Madam Speaker, we continue to hold our silence in public out of respect for the authority of the institution of the church. But we need comfort. We need to know that the church will stand and be what it needs to be, objective, and will uphold the truth at all times in a way that does not appear to be political. So, Madam Speaker, I hope I have said enough today to make it very clear to all and sundry how much the government values the role of the church, how much we are committed to continuing to dialogue with the church, and for my part, personally, my quest for the Good Shepherd continues. So, Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for indulging me, for allowing me an opportunity to speak here on matters of great importance. I had more to say, but perhaps that can happen at another time. But I would wish again to place on record my support for this appropriation bill as presented by the Honorable Prime Minister, and to echo the Prime Minister's exhortation of execute, execute, execute. It is not this government that will build St. Lucia. We will all, as a people, build St. Lucia. The government will provide the framework. The government will ensure that the resources are there. But it redounds to each one of us to do our part to build the St. Lucia that needs to be built, the individual, the family, the community, the church, as we move forward ahead to implement the mandate that the people of St. Lucia have given us. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs, Public Service, Leader of Government Business.
Madam, can I ask that this House, request that this House be adjourned until tomorrow, May 11th at 9 a.m.
Honorable members, the question is that this House do stand adjourned until tomorrow, Thursday, 11th May at 9 o'clock in the forenoon. I now put the question. And many are as of that opinion, say aye. Aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. This House to stand adjourned until tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the forenoon.
Well, this is where we bring the curtain down on day one of the debate on the 2017-2018 Appropriation Bill. Leading the debate was Honorable Philip J. Pierre, Leader of the Opposition and Member of Parliament for Castries East, who expressed concern about a lot of things, but chiefly the DSH project. The second presenter was Honorable Dominic Fedi, Ancillary Canaries MP and Minister with responsibility for tourism, information and broadcasting. Mr. Fedi touched on several issues, among them youth in agriculture, project in Ancillary. He also spoke of the ongoing St. Lucia National Trust debate and the DSH project. Tourism and tourism linkages was also one of his concerns. And as far as his constituency is concerned, Mr. Fedi spoke of the farmers benefiting from the banana rehabilitation program. He spoke also of the rehabilitation of roads in his constituency. And coming down to the last presenter for day one is the MP for Castries Central and External Affairs Minister, Honorable Sarah Flood-Beaubrun. She spoke a lot about the first of all, she commended the Prime Minister on the budget, and she spoke extensively about the importance of family and issues relating to men and boys. She said that it is her hope to advocate for policies relating to the family. Well, this is where we bring the curtain down on day one of the 2017-2018 debate on the Appropriation Bill. We ask you to rejoin the National Television Network tomorrow at 9 a.m. for continued live coverage of the budget. Good evening.
I would like to or rather allow her to talk to all of you. We are all here